Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, that is Chuck. This is episode 92. If you're new to these parts, basically this is the show where we review one new movie, we review one movie from the past, and they're connected by some sort of common thread. And today, we've got a heavy hitter. First up, it's the new film from the savior of the theatrical experience. We're reviewing Christopher Nolan's attempt at the Odyssey. Then, something completely, decidedly different. In the year 2000, the Coen Brothers put their own spin on the book by Homer with the musically inclined "O Brother, Where Art Thou?" This is kind of a phenomenon of the time, I guess. Chuck, what do you remember about "O Brother, Where Art Thou" when it came out?
It basically consumed every aspect of my parents' lives just because suddenly bluegrass music was what we were listening to. Like Alison Krauss and like Prairie Home Companion were like already a part of, how we, dealt with boredom, especially on car rides. We didn't have cable. We didn't even have bunny ears. We used to listen to the AM and FM radio stations in the morning. So I was already kind of used to hearing like banjo plucking, like in my house, just because that's what they were into. But the movie itself, though, was on repeat. Like I kind of put a note on our doc about "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" But let me just say, I am not an objectively, rooted critic of that film. It is
Sure.
a part of my family fabric, and I will not abide any slander. I will accept honest and proper criticism, but I will leap to defend it on certain counts. Just because, yeah, it's like every lazy Sunday that I could remember for quite a long time, that movie was playing in the afternoon, and yeah, I still personally have our copy of the CD that my parents bought because it
Yep.
just wound up in my zipper booklet, of CDs and whatnot. And the Odyssey in general, I've done my fucking homework, man. I don't know about you. I did my rewatch of the Armand Assante Hallmark Channel American Zoetrope adaptation. Like that's what's crazy. That's a Francis Ford Coppola production, and it's hokey in 90s in all the right ways and wrong ways. And it's a very much a more straightforward telling of the story. Not a lot of substance to it. And honestly, it beat Nolan to colorblind casting in a way that, like, well, while also having a lot of like native Greek looking people in it, you still had Vanessa Williams playing Calypso, and I also which other version did I rewatch? Oh, The
Did you watch The
Return. I
Return?
watched The
Yeah.
Return, which is a discreet, extremely grounded telling of the end of the story.
Yes.
And very interesting in its own right. But I guess just to lead into it, Mr. Nolan here has, done some things quite incredibly, and other things it just makes me question why I found him brilliant to begin with. And with that said, let's jump into the Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. Why don't you, I guess, kind of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, it's weird. I walked into this movie, based off the trailers, expecting like, okay, this we haven't gotten like the $250 million like definitive version of this book yet. And that's what Nolan was going to do. That's what I thought he was going to do. Was like this is going to be a very by the book, like just high budget, like just $250 million like perfect adaptation, and that's not what it is. It's interesting because there's so many different directions you can lean when you're adapting something this expansive, but it's also very dry, and so you almost need to you need to cater to modern sensibilities in a way. And so I don't know if I guess I was kind of delusional to think that that was ever going to even happen in the first place. But as you said, we've gotten this story, we've gotten it adapted as like a love story. We've gotten, not the Odyssey, but we've gotten like the Iliad adapted as Troy, which is a historical action epic, and we've gotten, the traumatic drama that's grounded in reality with the Return. And I guess Nolan's version of this, if I had to give it a sort of similarly reductive, sentence, would be like a rumination on regret and hospitality. And he's doing for Odysseus what he did with Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer. And this is a man who is his one great idea destroyed his world basically. And it's not the high budget definitive account I thought it was going to be. Nolan has truly sort of made it his own, and I think depending on how that idea works for you is kind of how you're going to fall on this movie as to whether or not you like it or dislike it, or somewhere in between. But I don't know. It's still, this movie has all the problems that a Nolan movie has, in my opinion. I don't know why he hasn't corrected some of these things at this point. The dialogue is frequently garbled. That's probably my biggest complaint, and I don't understand why this continues to be a problem with his movies. The script is pretty hit or miss in my opinion. There's a lot of like kind of cheeseball lines, some really weird like humor. And the cast is hit or miss. And in my opinion, I don't know. It has nothing to do with like their race or like their gender or whatever. It just has to do with like miscasting. There are certain people in this movie that are completely miscast, and we'll get to that. But anyways,
And just right
uh,
up a Front Street,
yeah,
Elliot Page is not miscast in this movie.
no,
Not at all.
no,
Yeah,
no, he's
like
great. Yeah,
yeah, like
he has. In my opinion, his one of his scenes is like the linchpin of this movie. It's the scene that makes the movie work. It's the scene that connects everything. And so, yeah, I would agree there.
because what I found just in like reading the background, reading what Nolan has said, reading about like what informed his adaptation, a more recent translation by a British woman.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's like there's that angle where it's like they are trying to, you know, yeah, make it more comprehensible to modern people because it could be, translated, in a more, with more gravitas and, and more, like language suited towards a grander, take on it where it's flowery and everything. But in reducting it down to something that's more understandable, like that's something I have to do in my job. I have to take government and like business PR jargon and translate it into something that is comprehensible to the layman, let alone your average third grader. And in a sense, that's kind of why you have some of the really atrocious dialogue in this movie. But at the same time, it's also where like his movie does have at its core, a more interesting question and interpretation of why, all of this stuff is happening to Odysseus. Because in other adaptations, he's just this brilliant, conniving, kind of like trickster, god himself. Because he's always, oh, where I can't win with force, I will win with my wiles. And that's why everyone loves Odysseus. It's why he's such a, revered character within the canon of Western literature. But they explore this other aspect just to the historical collapse of the Bronze Age, and in taking the story of the Iliad and the Odyssey and finding within that an explanation for that historical event. And it's the death of the connection between man and the gods. And I think it's so crazy that what is Odysseus is the most celebrated for, the ending the Trojan War with the Trojan horse was such an anathema. He did it in a way that, was anathema. He violated the conventions of Xenia, which is not something I was ever taught when I read, the Odyssey in high school. That wasn't something that was included in the background information. But yeah, hospitality and regret, like you say, define this interpretation of it. And that's ultimately what I found the most rewarding from the experience, was having a deeper, reason for why this is happening to Odysseus. It's not just arrogance. It's not just, him pissing Poseidon off, because he took too much credit for, what he, did, and thought too much of himself for it. And in this whole saga is just him getting humbled. It makes a lot more sense that there's like a redemption that has to happen, and an acceptance for what the consequences of what your actions are. But yeah, that's my broad, overview for it. Um, the
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the theme because I was kind of wondering. I spent a lot of time wondering in the first two acts, like, okay, where is this going? What are we doing here? And then that scene in the underworld happens, and it's kind of like everything clicks, where it's like okay, this is like a guy who is he never wanted to go home because a lot of the framing device of this movie, or at least the first like half of it, is he is on the beach with Calypso and he's sort of trying to remember everything. And you're sort of getting all this information as he is. And it's like everything sort of clicks. And, he never wanted to go home in the first place because he was embarrassed, because he was in, shame. He didn't want to. I think there's literally like a line that's like, the breaking of Zeus's law spreading like a plague. Our age of bronze is collapsing, and he couldn't bear to see the ruins of what he had done anywhere, least of all his home. And
yeah,
so, yeah, that's like his. He just didn't want to go back in the first place because he's just so embarrassed. And yeah, none of that is in the book. And so, yeah, that was really interesting.
it's like it might be there, but it's hidden in what the translations we read in school focused on. Which
Mhm.
is, just more the meat and potatoes, of the story. Like what made it be retold so much. It's all that's the adventure, and there isn't actually an adventurous spirit in this movie because it's so weighed down by that emotional, baggage that permeates all the rest of it. There are certain segments that are gone from the story because it's infuriating, like the whole like sidebar at the god Aeolus's island, where he's like, "Oh hey, Odysseus, what's up, man? I hate my brother Poseidon. I know he's fucking with you. Here's a bag of air. This'll if you keep all the air in this bag, like all the wind in the bag, you'll get home faster." And he's like right at home. He's like right at the doorstep of Ithaca, and then one of his soldiers is like, "What's in the fucking bag, Odysseus?" And he cuts it open, and then they get flung to Circe's island. Like they skip that segment completely because why bother with it? But then like there are other sequences that stay in, because you need to have some kind of an inexplicable army of like plate armored giants that just wipe you out for some reason. You have to have the siren sequence because that's pretty famous too. But yeah, but the whole reason for all those, like the reason why the story is so long is just because he had to have another reason to get back to back to zero. Something had to happen, whether it was his arrogance, the ignorance of his men, which is I appreciated that they included the fact that he had to keep them ignorant about some things, because in the end this is his story and they're just cannon fodder for it. But but then again, like the the parts that are there are pretty much effective for the most part. I do think Calypso was a little wasted. She's
Yeah.
just this framing device sequence. There wasn't a lot, like she just was already at the point where she was ready to let him go back home. She just needed him to remember and want to go. The like there's no section where the gods are like, "Hey, the fates have decided that you have to let Odysseus go back to Ithaca." sorry, it's out of our hands. I'm just Hermes the messenger. I'm gonna fly away now. Like they didn't do that. What did you think of the way that the gods were presented here? Because like for all the people fanboying about Troy now, I've always been a fan of that movie.
Yeah.
The gods are completely absent from that.
Yeah.
And in this
Well,
one, the interpretation is interesting. What did you make of that?
well, yeah, I mean, I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but the only actual god in this movie is Athena. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there are, there's certainly other plenty of supernatural elements and plenty of, weird creatures and witches and, seers and stuff like that, but the only actual god is Athena. And so I feel like the intent there and the intent with Athena as a whole in this movie is to sort of keep it sort of ambiguous as to whether or not she was even there in the first place. Where um, he only ever sees Athena, and it's only ever him seeing Athena. Nobody else sees her, and she always disappears like Batman, where like the camera pans to the left and then it pans back to the right, and Athena is gone. And
Yeah,
so I think the reason why Nolan did that was, I mean, this is certainly a supernatural world with supernatural
a
things,
time
but
of apparent magic, as the opening
yeah.
title says.
Yeah, but the as to whether or not there are actual gods, I think is still kind of a little bit ambiguous because we just never see any other ones. We hear the Cyclops call out to Poseidon, but we never actually see, Poseidon. And so, yeah, I think that was kind of the point there, was to kind of keep Athena essentially is a stand-in for Odysseus's morality, or essentially his conscience, I guess, more than anything. And yeah, I don't know, what did you make of it, the gods and stuff?
Because I mean, you can't just do what Armand Asante movie did, which is where Poseidon is a wave with a 90s CG like mummy face, superimposed over it. It can't always be like that, and I respect the fact that he you didn't succumb to corniness and just go full fantasy on this. Like that's not his way. I understand that about the guy. And yeah, it's like are the gods real, or are they just the things that belief creates in our own minds? I I could roll with that. It because that's the thing. If there's so many fucking like genuinely you know bizarre things in their existence, that it's because but they are in retreat, like throughout it. Like there might be a cyclops on that island that these men have never seen before, but they have no actual experience with the supernatural world already, which is why Zeus's law is diminishing. Like they are finding themselves crossing into the boundaries of a reality that is disappearing, and it's eating them alive the whole way because they're like it's like two different like organisms like rejecting each other, essentially, like bacteria running into each other, or like two ant colonies running into each other. But I think with Athena itself, like I that's my big quibble with like he went too far in showing the idea that and maybe I'm wrong, but the fact that Odysseus would destroy a temple to Athena makes no fucking sense to me. Is because
Sure.
she was like his patron god. He was always like reaching out to her, and like she was always intervening on his behalf. But then we have to pull ourselves back, Matt, not get so lost in the sauce of the source material here, because holy fucking shit, there's the Iliad and the Odyssey, and then there's like all of the other stories and plays that led into it and led
Mhm.
off of it. Like there is so much like scholarly investigation into this that like one could argue that the whole reason for like all of this stuff happening is a conspiracy by Zeus, and it's in the text. And I could explain it to you right now. Zeus wanted to wipe out the earth. There was too many people in it. So he was like, how can I cause some shit to happen that will give me some population control? And his answer was, let's just not let the goddess of discord into this wedding party for the grandparents of Achilles. Let's just do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like the fact that he still could find a way to get this story comprehensible in spite of all of the outrageous background material that there is an achievement. Even if there are things I have issues with, I have to just like surrender myself to the experience. And as an experience, well, like did it like kind of like how does it compare to the best Nolan movie, or just like
Sure.
like this kind of like a tent pole experience? Like how did you like find it on a visceral level?
Well, before I get to that, I want to address the point that you just made
Oh,
about the like so it's funny that, you mentioned the Zeus thing, and like, this whole thing, it could just be, kicked off because Zeus is petty.
yeah,
And they kind of he kind of not with Zeus, but Nolan kind of puts his own spin on that, even where there's that sort of almost throwaway line where they basically say that, oh, the whole Trojan War happens because Agamemnon is petty. They
yeah.
literally say
It's all about
it's like,
trade.
yeah, it's all about trade. Like he uses this Helen as an excuse because he wants the trade routes or whatever, and so everybody in this story is suddenly like just a tool of Agamemnon, and it's almost like a throwaway line in this movie, but yeah, what you were asking, yeah, about the experience. See, that is where maybe I was let down a bit, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because
Okay, don't
um,
kick my desk. Okay.
this is I struggle to kind of, when you think about older Nolan movies, especially the more action inclined ones, you think about individual sequences like and you think about the stuff you were awed by, like with the first time that you saw Inception and they did like the collapsing of the dreams, or the first time that you saw The Dark Knight and they did the hospital explosion, stuff like that. And I don't know, this movie, there isn't much that I feel like I haven't seen before, I guess, is
Yeah,
what I would say, where
yeah,
it's like, yeah, I mean, as a spectacle, I mean, we often get these shots of just like super super wide, like just Odysseus walking on a beach, or we get these shots of like the boat in the middle of the sea and there's nothing around it, and so we get all these, there's definitely the epicness as far as like the scenery and stuff, but I mean otherwise we don't get these like hugely choreographed action set pieces like we do
yeah.
in older Nolan movies.
And that's where this is a massive missed opportunity. And I was, quite disappointed. Like with the between, Scylla and Charybdis, that could have been a showstopper sequence. And even the finale bloodbath, it just was way too fucking chaotic.
Yeah.
It was impossible to appreciate what was happening.
Yeah, very
Especially
muddled.
compared to the the way that the Return handles it, and the way that the 1997 miniseries does it. The 1997 movie is surprisingly like bloody. That part is like they're showing like blood splatter against walls as people get like their throat slit behind a pillar. Like they couldn't show the throat slitting, but they could show the blood spray, which is crazy to me. But like those were not only faster sequences, it was a more abrupt, I suppose, because Odysseus had help. Like Telemachus plays a more active role than he does in this movie. But like I was like those are the parts that I expected to be kind of be more memorable. But yeah, like the parts the spectacle in this was pedestrian. I could think I would expect more interesting or more gripping interpretations of it. Like that whole sequence with the giants. Yeah, I was not
Yeah.
fucking into it. Like it was just lame.
Yeah,
Like
it was just kind of like it's like yeah, just nothing we haven't seen before, and they it's just them going into the forest, and then a couple guys get cut down, and then run back to the boat, and they did that so many.
these
I think they did
times.
that on yeah 3 times on this occasion, where they go into somewhere and then they run back to the boat, and um, yeah, it was. I guess this is kind of a good place to get into the discussion on like the IMAX discussion
Yeah.
because I I feel bad for the people who are like, oh my God, the next Nolan movie, I need to travel across the country to see this in IMAX. Like I've seen those stories. I've seen people who like, live in like I don't know, they live in like the outskirts of Maine, and they're like, I'm road tripping to New York City so I can see this in IMAX 70 millimeter. And I can't imagine the like disappointment of, this is the movie that you did that for. Where I mean
Right.
there are much better movies for that purpose. I would have rather seen Sinners in IMAX 70 millimeter. I would have rather seen Oppenheimer in IMAX 70 millimeter, and this, yeah, I don't know if I could have justified it, and it's funny because the demand this time for that format is
It's been
just
sold
out of
out
control.
for months, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been sold out for months, and they have in bigger
Buddy, I don't
cities,
want you kicking my
they
computer over there.
have
Hey,
showings
don't do that.
that
Don't do that.
are running around the clock.
Luca,
You could go
Luca,
if
hey,
you live in
calm
like New
down.
York City or LA, you can go see this at like 3 in the morning if you want to, and it's interesting how. I really boil it down to that Ryan Coogler video where there was a sea change where I mean plenty of people wanted to see Oppenheimer in IMAX 70 millimeter, but then that Ryan Coogler format video came out for Sinners, and now suddenly people are informed in a way that they weren't before, and people are suddenly like, I need to see this in 70 millimeter. I need to see this in IMAX. What I need to see this on the biggest screen that I have closest to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very interesting because I'm seeing a degree of anger that I haven't seen before with movies like this, where people are genuinely angry over not being able to access an IMAX showing of this movie. I'm seeing a lot of sentiments online where they're like, why the fuck are you advertising something so aggressively that 99.9% of people don't have
Hey, be
access
careful,
to?
buddy.
And I think that's
Well, buddy,
a
you just kicked
really,
something
really
over.
good question. I don't get why they're putting so much effort into marketing something that most people aren't even going to be able to see. I don't know. Do you have any theory behind that or anything?
It's part of the slow death of the normal movie theater and the Broadwayification of the experience. They want you to have the FOMO, essentially. I think that's what it
Sure.
boils down to. They want you paying for the premium version. They want demand for that premium version so that they can jack the prices up on it. Because eventually, when regular theater tickets, are just ordinately expensive, people will rationalize it and be like, well, if I'm going to spend that much money, it's going to be the one at actual Broadway in New York City. I'm not going to go to Broadway in Minneapolis or Bismarck when they're on tour. I'm only going to go when I can get it. We get the real McCoy. Like that's what they're doing. And in a sense, it's like it's where like all the credit that Nolan gets from Film Bros and his fans for he's preserving the integrity of the art form. I would argue now it's kind of apparent that he is detrimental to the cause because accessibility is what makes this art form so great. And if the only way to get your or like the the best version of your work is a way that the masses can't get anymore, I think you've lost something. You know, like you've made it too elite, and it's no longer something for everyone. Now it's only for the people who can afford it, and that's a shame, I think.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's been commodified in a way where it's like I think it genuinely used to be about like it used to be the vinyl thing where it's like
yeah,
I'm gonna see this in
well, I'm just
I'm
making
some
sure you don't
film
fall, buddy.
snob and I'm gonna see this in 70 millimeter because I think it's gonna give me a better experience. But it's been commodified in a way where it's not really about that anymore. It's more about like I'm gonna see this in 70 millimeter because before the movie starts, I can snap a photo on my phone and then post it on Instagram and tell
Yeah.
people that I did, and then also, um, you're definitely right, and it has been detrimental where it's like I remember when the 70 millimeter touring production of The Hateful Eight was going around the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah.
And when I went to that in 70 millimeter, and I remember, this was back when, whenever The Hateful Eight came out, I can't remember exactly when
It's like
that was, like 20, what was,
2018, I
yeah,
think.
20, yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. And I remember I distinctly remember I had like five different options where I could go to in my area where I could go, I could go to this theater or this theater or this theater or this theater. And now for the Odyssey, there's only two options around me that where I could see this, and I can't. There are no options for IMAX 70 millimeter. They closed that theater a long time ago. They used to have a 70 millimeter IMAX theater attached to the Minnesota Zoo, and that
Yeah.
closed like 5 or 6 years ago. But now it's like there are only two options for just 70 millimeter, just to see this on 70 millimeter film, and so it has gone, it has gone down. The options have gone down, and I think that the people who want to bitch about this online because they think that it's gonna make them open up more IMAX theaters,
No.
they are sorely mistaken, because the reason why that isn't happening is because they're not gonna open an IMAX theater for a something that happens once or twice a year. We're getting the Odyssey, and then in December we're getting Dune 3. And those are the only two reasons why people are gonna get in such a hubbub about this. Otherwise, that IMAX theater is gonna sit empty the rest of the year. And so they're not gonna open more IMAX theaters for something that happens once or twice a year. And
That's a good
so
point.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
But anyways, that I really wanted to get that in there,
Well,
to talk about that
and you know what's
stuff.
ironic as fuck, Matt? This fits into the theme of Nolan's Odyssey movie. He is Odysseus. What has he wrought? You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, to get back, I guess, to steer us back towards the actual movie, I think we would definitely be remiss not to talk about the cast.
Yeah.
I do want to talk
Let's
about the
jump in that
cast.
minefield.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because
Oh, you bumped your head?
there
It's okay.
are people in this movie
You're okay.
where it's like, why are you here?
Why
Why
is
are
Logan whatever Green? Like
Marshall Green?
Marshall.
Yeah,
Why is
yeah,
he in the? I didn't even realize he was until I looked at the cast list, and I was like, oh, that's who that guy was. That dude who
yeah,
didn't
but
say a single word.
yeah, who basically he played like the bitch that goes to retrieve the weapons at the end,
Yeah.
like the servant that goes to
Well,
retrieve the weapons,
and
and it's like, I mean, but even people that technically have a more substantial role, they really aren't doing anything. Where it's like you have Mia Goth playing like a servant girl. You
but
have
Melanto should be more involved. She should be having an affair with Pattinson's character. Like she
Mhm,
like there wasn't enough debauchery happening.
mhm.
So yeah, Nolan took away a lot of what opportunity there could have been for these roles to be more substantive. Like, we never once see Charlize Theron seducing Odysseus. We never see Odysseus lay pipe around the Mediterranean, which is really what he did in the actual
Oh yeah.
story. Like, But I did appreciate the dual role that Lupita Nyong'o had, as Helen and her sister. Because yeah, no, like there is a metal ass fucking end for Agamemnon, yeah, and they did it, and I'm glad that they referred to Epigenia, even though they made her like a small child instead of like a marriage aged, which might be like 13 back then for all we know. Teenager. But yeah, like the amount of people who were just there for the sake of saying that they were in it was pretty astounding.
Yeah, I mean, Benny Safdie as Agamemnon it's cool, but it's like ultimately, it's like, dude, why did you take this role?
Why
you're
were
like one
you
of the
in
most
peak physical condition? Why was that a requirement, Nolan? You show his like back muscles, and that's it. You know,
yeah. And the rest of the time, he's just. I did think it was cool. I thought that they were gonna go the route with him where it's like he was gonna be silent the entire movie and he was never gonna talk. And I was like, oh, this is kind of inspired where he's literally just kind of this really really imposing like specter, like when the gates of Troy open and he's just
just standing
standing
there.
there. And
Yeah.
but then eventually he does get a couple lines, and he is in the underworld and he's talking, and so he does eventually actually say something. But I thought it almost was inspired where he was gonna just be kind of this really scary specter in the background. But yeah, the a lot of the stuff was overstated. The Travis Scott stuff was fine. I don't know, people just don't like it because it's Travis Scott. The Pattinson was chewing at the scenery as much as he could possibly be chewing the scenery. His comedy stuff was really bad in my opinion. Like you would recognize him by just his nose, and get the swords, get the shields,
The
get the
biz.
spears. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like okay, that stuff was he was ultimately fine, but again, it's like why, kind of like why are you here sort of thing. But I'm trying to think. Oh, the only person that I thought was just genuinely awful. And I don't know, maybe you don't share this view, but I thought Hathaway was like awful. Like I thought the knob on her melodrama was turned up to like 11, and I was like, "Oh my God." Like everything, it just didn't fit the mood to me, and she just looked really out of place in my opinion. And I don't know, do you share that thought, or do you think she was fine, or
No,
what?
I agree with you. Like she was kind of annoying. She had
Yeah.
she had one note she had to hit the whole movie,
Hmm.
and and that's all that she did throughout it. Like I think I am having some like retrospective just like confusion, about some of Nolan's casting choices, and she pops up a lot. Like
Hmm.
I grew up, like kind of like not really having that deep of an opinion on her, but I do think that her skills are limited. There's only so much she really can do, despite the Oscar she received.
Yeah.
And Nolan isn't very capable of eliciting anything out of her beyond just wood. Like her Catwoman, really, really lame.
Yeah, it was.
Like, and in Interstellar, she was just kind of there. Like
Mhm.
like I don't know. Like there is a disconnect for me, with when Nolan is working with any actor that isn't playing his stoic male lead. There's he just like they all say the right things. They all are so effusive, about how much of a master he is, and it's like he unlocked things in me I didn't know I had. Like there's just so much PR going on that like I think everyone is just drinking the Kool-Aid and believing it, and especially with her. Like I was neutral on Anna Hathaway for a really long time, and then my wife, who is an avowed hater. I don't know why she hates Anne Hathaway so much, but if a movie like comes up as, hey, why don't we watch this, and Anne Hathaway is in it, she's like, fuck you, fuck no. I refuse to watch anything with her in it. And I'm just like, geez, okay, I don't know what she did to you, but you should tell me because this seems pretty bad. And like, and with Travis Scott, it's stunt casting. But why is he
Yeah.
the first thing we see?
Yeah, yeah, he's like literally in the first frame, and yeah, I have to imagine. I mean, Nolan has people that he likes to go back to, and Nolan worked with Travis Scott on the Tenant soundtrack, and
He
so
did the theme song. Yeah.
yeah, he did like the song for Tenet. And so I imagine it's just like a thing where he just called up Travis Scott and he's like, "Hey, want to be in my movie?" Because I liked working with you, and Nolan really likes to do that a lot. And it goes. I notice I've noticed that it goes all the way down to the people in bit parts where it's like the dude who is like the guy who steers the rudder on the boat
Hmm.
was like Bane's main henchman from The Dark Knight Rises. And that guy never had any lines in that movie, but he's just in this movie also. And it goes to like Bill Irwin, who played the voice of Tars in
And did the
Interstellar.
puppetry for Tars
Yeah,
on
and did the
set.
puppetry for Tars.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played the Cyclops in this. And then you have, James Remar is
Tertius.
the
Yeah.
yeah, the guy in
Yeah.
the underworld. And he was obvious, he was in Oppenheimer as the president. And so
He was
yeah,
a
it's
he was a
it's
general or like a joint chief of staff or
oh, that's
something
right.
like that.
That's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. It was
Oldman was
it
the
was
president.
Oldman,
Yeah.
Oldman. Yeah, that's right.
And,
And
yeah.
so yeah, he likes to go back and work with people he's worked with before. And I mean, literally, I don't know if Hamish Patel was in Tenet, and Hamish Patel literally could probably be considered the second lead of this movie if there is a second lead. Like
Was
he has so many lines. He has so much, he's the person who is constantly interacting with Odysseus, and he's barely in any of the marketing material for this.
I'm trying.
And then of
Okay,
course you
a
have
different Indian actor was in Inception. I had to correct myself. I was about to say, wasn't he in that too? But that was
oh,
Dilip
that's right.
Rao, the different guy.
Okay.
Different guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
But
you're right though. Like he was constantly there.
yeah.
He was the one that basically communicated the mood of his crew. To him, and yeah when they ate that fucking cow, it was just like, you sons of bitches. Like, what the fuck have you done?
I did want to call out though. I mean, if there is like MVPs of the movie as far as the casting goes, probably Leguizamo. He was great in his role. I'm glad that he is sort of breaking in old age, that he's kind of breaking out of his typecasting. And then Samantha Morton. She's the only person in this movie that I feel like really fits like a puzzle piece, where it's like yeah, I thought while I was watching it, I thought of like Patrick Stewart doing Shakespeare, where it's like this person was made for this role. This person was made to deliver this dialogue, and it just clicks as far as she is concerned, where she gets it.
Yeah, yeah, and that sequence in particular is a highlight. I appreciated just like the body horror of that sequence. Like
Yeah,
it
it was
was
so gross.
genuinely disturbing. And but like but at the same time, but I mean, yeah, it's like it's like he's in this original story. She's one of the people that tricks Odysseus, and he spends like 5 years on her island before she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I did that to you. Now go back to your wife." and like in this, it was this more spooky. She's genuinely a witch. Like there was nothing alluring about her. And when like the initial confrontation with, like, is it Eumaeus, like whatever the Patel's character is name is, but there's this moment of vulnerability where she's like, "Oh fuck, like you're gonna like rape me and kill me and just and destroy my home," and he's has to like, "No, we're not gonna do that yet, but we need food," like, and she really, I agree with you, has, I've always appreciated her as an actress, but the people are Oscar buzz for like a 10-minute, cameo essentially
Mhm.
in this massive 3 hour long movie. And like, even though like Nolan was pumping her gas a lot, saying like people were like in tears after they were done shooting her scenes or something like that. Like they were all just so moved by it. And like that, I think is they're putting a little too much butter on that bun,
Yeah.
But like it is a highlight. I was profoundly into the Cyclops cave sequence.
Mhm.
Even though like it did get a little bit silly where they were stuck in there for like days at a time. Like when he like rolled it back on him and trapped him in there. Unless I misunderstood what I saw, but I just wish that like there could have been that battle of wits going on where Odyssey, like Nolan is very upfront about why he removed the nobody has blinded me you aspect to that scene. But I appreciated what Bill Irwin did, like the shot of him just like biting the heads off of those guys, like in the flickering firelight. Like that was great. Like that's like
Mhm.
the indelible image that I'll take away from this movie. But the at the same time, it's like these scenes that were in there didn't quite serve their purpose. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of my ongoing gripe.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely I kind of had similar complaints, I guess, where it's like, ultimately what are we getting from, the Cyclops scene, or ultimately what are we getting from the scene of the giant, silver armored warriors? And there's just there's certain things where it's like, okay, why did you feel like you needed to include this, but then not, something else from the book? Even like like I don't know what it's exactly called, but like the weird like tentacle monster that kills a bunch of his crew after the whirlpool.
Oh, that's
It's
Charybdis.
like,
No, Charybdis is the whirlpool. Scylla is the tentacle monster. That like
okay, sure.
and and this is where it's like like one of those things that made me question his brilliance. It just felt like it reminded me of the special effects from The Host. You know, they're like there's something from a long
Mhm.
time ago. It's like like, and he's so enamored with doing everything the natural way and the grounded, realistic way. He does not know how to use CGI, how to frame it. Like, if you had given this movie to Peter Jackson, holy fucking shit. Like I think he could have made a very different movie that would have been more successful in other areas, and in particular that one. Like, like having this IMAX camera just like tilt up and have this like like shoulder mounted shaky view, and I guess maybe he's trying to show us what it would look like from the ship itself while this thing is coming down and eating you. But it's not memorable at all. I remember, and well, like how Scylla and Charybdis were realized by the Jim Henson Creature Shop for a Hallmark made-for-TV movie, but there was nothing distinctive or memorable or interesting about these supernatural things that are like defining moments of the story. Like how did they survive that? Those kinds of things. Like the characters just are just walking on a treadmill and the scenery's moving along with them. You know what I mean? Whenever we do our, like, I'm just gonna compare like this sequence to like that battle in House of the Dragon and the battle of the Gullet. Like when they're
Yeah.
trying to navigate through the teeth, the chasm of rocks and everything. Like that was gripping and exciting and whatnot. This should have been too. It just kind of felt weirdly prosaic in a way that it really shouldn't.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I would agree. There are just a lot of scenes that should be more exciting than they are. There are a lot of scenes that should have more of a purpose. I mean, all those, I guess, I'm just kind of stretching a bit here, but to try and, come up with a reason why some of these exist, I guess it's all in service of getting Odysseus's crew to eventually like kind of turn on him, I guess,
Yeah,
is kind of what, because if, if 75% of his crew doesn't get decimated by those warriors in the silver armor, then does the crew really have a good reason to turn on him, or as good of a reason to turn on them when they eventually do, or when they eventually are like, we've taken a vote or whatever?
yeah.
I guess not. So I guess that's kind of why all the those scenes exist. But yeah, I don't know. I guess anything else you wanted to touch on before we kind
Yeah,
of
because
wrap up
we
this part?
really we were in too deep, and I lost track of time.
Yeah.
You know, if there's anything I could change about this movie, it was just to punch up the fucking dialogue and stop thinking you're so fucking clever for making people talk like it's the modern day. Like
Yeah.
that was the wrong choice. Yeah, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be like, I don't know, compare, like, yeah, like, for all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West, from Return of the King, to
Mhm.
let's go. Like that,
Yeah.
it should be flowery and epic. It should stir the soul a little bit, and yeah, I don't know. I like I said, it kind of makes me question his brilliance, and I don't know if his tuning, the Tarantino tuning fork that that is his metaphorical career, is just kind of starting to phase down on its frequency a little bit. But
Mhm.
he's a little drunk on his Oscar win. His son should have humbled him more. Did you hear that anecdote?
No.
So he was like just talking about how I'm writing the Odyssey, and it's a daunting task. So I put my Oscars and I put them off of my mantle so they wouldn't be in view, so that I wouldn't like be overburdened by the task ahead of me. And his son is like, Dad, you didn't win an Oscar for writing, just like, and now we know
That's
why.
awesome.
And now we know why. And
Yeah, it's definitely like for me the dialogue, the part that I specifically think of where I was like, okay, this is really strange was when Corey Hawkins is like, "Shut the fuck up, beggar! Shut the fuck up!" or whatever he says to. It's towards the end. I think it's yeah when Leguizamo is like at their feet and Corey Hawkins is literally like, "Shut the fuck up!" and it's like, geez, what are we like? Why is this? Why is this guy saying "shut the fuck up" in an adaptation of Homer? It just is so weird. Um, but yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I yeah, I would agree with you. I think no, I wouldn't call Nolan an idiot savant, but I think that he's kind of in that vein where it's like this guy has an eye for action, and this guy has a eye for creating set pieces and for thematic elements, and basically making a movie that is digestible for the masses, but then also giving it an actual punch of a theme or a little bit a little bit of something to think about. But I don't think writing is not his strong suit, and yeah, I just don't. Um, I do appreciate though his Nolan. I'm glad you busted out the accent because he does have that British sort of um, you know pompousness to him, but I am glad that he's able to kind of deflect the haters and stuff like that for stuff like this, where it's like he's gonna make the movie that he wants to make, and
yeah,
he won't let Nolan is not the type of guy that's gonna wade into the mucky waters of Twitter and just start debating some rando like dude with like a with like 1,000 followers on YouTube or something like that. He's anytime I've watched a lot of interviews with him leading up to this, and anytime anything is brought up that's like, oh, all these people are complaining about Travis Scott, or like, oh, all these people are complaining about Elliot Page.
the
He's just like,
costumes. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, the costumes. Yeah, he Nolan is just like I don't really think about it, and then they just like move on. He's just like I don't. Yeah,
And that's
whatever.
why
Like I don't really.
I love him. You know, and that's why
Yeah.
like he was the filmmaker suited for the task, you know, just on his like on the merits of what he can do. But, you know, his choices did inflame the culture war to a degree, not that he intended them to do that, and that's great. The fact that he's just going to be like, "Okay, you're all in a tizzy and you guys are all white knighting me. That's your fucking thing." You know, like I'm here to do other stuff. And you know that's why like I have no ill will. This like I'm not one of those people who's you know thinking saying he's a hack now. You know like he's the only guy who could make a movie like this happen. You know, which is you know well, he's the guy as it were. And speaking of a couple of other guys, back when they were a duo, the Coen brothers, they're like I guess what you could say is their most mainstream commercial success. You know, I would say like the movie that they made that genuinely had the most inroads into the monoculture. It was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? They definitely were on the art house scene. You know, they won the Palme d'Or. They were nominated for Oscars. For almost perpetually, and then they made this movie that advanced the use of special effects. It created something that lightning in a bottle that really hasn't been captured in the same way with the what it did for a whole genre of music and the artists involved in the soundtrack itself. It's a very successful musical film. It's a very like interesting interpretation of the source material that informed our episode today. And for me and my family, it was the ultimate hangout movie. I love every single character in this movie has a moment that lives in my mind, and I'm so glad that you identified a few of them in the doc, especially the "get out of the Woolsworth" dude. That guy lives in my head rent free. Like this movie is so integral to just a period of my childhood and the music from it as well. But when you come off of this Nolan experience as an adaptation interpretation of the story, does it work for you? And I guess overall, does the movie work for you? Like what? Like how would you quantify it?
Yeah, I would say it still works. I was kind of in a similar boat as you where I really remember the more than anything the soundtrack when this came out and just how it like took over the world and introduced so many people to bluegrass. And when I watch it today, it's weird because okay, the way that I would describe it, I I guess I have to use numbers here just to kind of get my point across where it's like I watched this movie, 4 or 5 days ago, and my immediate thought upon it finishing was, okay, I used to think this movie was like a 5 out of 5, and I'm not quite sure. I think it's a 5 out of 5, but I still think it's like a 4 out of 5. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Where it's like I still think this is really great, but I'm just there are certain things when I watch it now that I'm like, oh, I don't know if that really works as well as I thought it did, or maybe when I watched it, the first time I got wrapped up in things so much that I wasn't really, and I was also probably like 12 when I
yeah,
first saw it, yeah, I mean the Coens too. We come from a time when the Coens were sacrosanct, where it's like when you couldn't say anything bad about the Coens back when they were a duo because you would immediately not be taken seriously as like a critical thinker. And nobody really talks about how much they've fallen off these days, where it's like for some reason they've decided to do this thing where they split up and they're trying to do their own movies separately, and it's really not working, and nobody's
Mm,
really talking about how much they've fallen off, which I think is really also speaks to how much people hold them in regard. Nobody really wants to talk about all the shit they've been making in the past like 4 or 5 years, but um this movie, I think, though, is really like it's propped up by their collaborators, I think, where T-Bone Burnett does the soundtrack and Roger Deakins does the cinematography, and all of the little actors that show up are doing the acting. I think that the success of this movie honestly has very little to do with the actual direction, the actual directing.
it's the
And
whole ensemble. It's
yes,
the whole package. Yeah.
yeah. And so um that is why it's successful in my opinion. And so I guess that's kind of where I can leave it for now. But yeah, I don't know where you wanted to go from here. I guess we probably should just talk about the music.
Yeah.
Because that is sort of the front and center thing. The movie won Grammy, or the soundtrack won Grammys. The soundtrack won Country Music Awards. The album went gold, and so it's intrinsically tied to this movie, and it's intrinsically tied to individual scenes. So what sort of stands out to you as like the best, like musical scenes, I guess, in the film?
You know, the opening credits live rent free in my head as well. There will be days where I just randomly start singing Big Rock Candy Mountain and like whistling it
Hmm.
because it's just burned into my brain. Like down to the river to pray naturally. But like weirdly for me, I guess maybe not weirdly because I was a prepubescent boy when I first saw this movie, but didn't leave nobody but the baby. He really stirred something within me. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I like it's kind of a more understated scene, but the scene of like Tommy singing
yeah,
Hard Time Killing Floor Blues around the campfire, where they're all just kind of sitting around the campfire like not talking, and then they start talking about like what are you gonna do with the money? What are you gonna, do with your
yeah,
share or whatever? And I really, really like that scene. And then of course, I mean, you have probably the most famous scene in the movie, the in the radio station when he's singing I am a man of constant sorrow. I mean, that scene is great for a number of reasons, from the song to Stephen Root's performance, his little, cameo or bit part is, yeah, it's so great.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I almost like the ending performance better when they're like wearing the beards and the blackface.
Yeah.
the and the way that Pappy O'Daniel like dances across the stage to get to him, like that whole sequence is very very fun, and like then that music in general. Oh, and the Ku Klux Klan like chant, like the low high, like that part is pretty wild as well.
Mhm.
And I guess something I wanted to maybe call out, like another star of this movie, it's the South. The
Yeah.
landscapes, the culture, of the Dust Bowl South, and just the sensibilities of the Dust Bowl South. Like it is such a natural like substitution for the Mediterranean, in a way. And and I guess in particular like the way that like hospitality, like that whole notion of hospitality and like being
Yeah.
proper to each other. It's like, well, you've come to visit, we got some old horse we killed last week, and then you give what you have. But the aspect of religion and faith is like it comes up throughout it, here and there, and of course right at the end, it's like what brings their redemption, like their old, like what, when does he finally get baptized? Everett Miguel, when does he get his his moment of his Odysseus moment of, I'm sorry Poseidon, stop afflicting me, It's when he falls to his knees and he's about to be hung or whatever it is, and he's just like, God, I haven't been much of a believer, but please, if there's something you could do it. you know, but did God actually do that? No, they just were at a place that has been forecasted to have a thing happen since the beginning of the movie, and that thing happened. So, like, how real is God even in what they experience? Who the hell knows? It doesn't really matter. And I
Yeah,
found that interesting.
the movie has very interesting attitudes towards religion, where it's like, Everett, he's the non-believer. He spends a lot of the movie just railing against, like, oh, you guys, it's all superstition, it's all, not real, and then, ultimately he's spared after he prays sort of in desperation. And but the movie is very sure to always leave a little bit of, ambiguousness there, where, when the flood comes, you're like, oh well, there's no way that wasn't supernatural. But then they still leave a little bit of ambiguousness there, because I think there's like a throwaway line where, like, oh, I heard that they were gonna flood the basin or whatever this week or
Well,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Somebody says.
because that was the thing. There was always a ticking clock on their mission. Because
Mhm.
they knew that it was going to be flooded. That's why they ran away. Yeah,
Oh, for the treasure. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
for
right.
the
Okay.
treasure,
Yeah.
which was in a roll top desk.
Yeah. um But yeah, it's interesting. And then the politics too. What do you
Yeah,
think about that aspect, where it's like there's this through line through the movie where of politics, Southern politics, and the relationship between like music and campaigning for public office, and how
yeah,
people are, they're riding around in cars with people playing music on the back, and people are listening to it on the radio, and there's this sort of this through line. And at the end of the day, I think it's interesting that, the Soggy Bottom Boys ultimately are just a political tool. They're ultimately just kind of a like you're a means to the end for this dude to get elected. Like, that's all you ever were, really. And that's what he does at the end. He basically just kind of turns the situation to his whim, basically. The that one politician, the fat guy.
yeah. Pappy O'Daniel,
Mhm.
and I guess and this occurred to me as I was you're rewatching it for the show, but instead of a Trojan War, the like what is it instead? It's this political fight. Between the Menelaus Pappy O'Daniel. Like it's like they think that they gave him the men like there wasn't an Agamemnon, but like you could see a Southern man being named Menelaus. Like there's someone's read some classics down here. We're educated. They get fancy names. And where was I? There's somewhere I was going to go with that, and I lost my train of thought. But it's the political thing, yeah, and that is instead of the Trojan War, and there was something else, like the guy stalking him. Instead of Poseidon, we have like this Judge Holden esque, like, Marshall. Is that what he is?
See, I don't know, because that's if I had any sort of big complaint watching the movie this time around, that's probably it, is where it's like this dude is like such a nothing burger of a villain, where it's like he's only shown, I don't know, maybe 3 times throughout the movie, and the rest of the time you just kind of either see him at a distance, or just kind of the specter of him. But I've seen a lot of interpretations of what exactly that guy is supposed to be, whether it is he's supposed to have an actual like one-to-one with the Odyssey story, or I've seen a lot of people just think the guy literally represents death. Like, he's
Yeah,
literally the Grim Reaper. Like, that's what that guy is. And I'm not really sure.
yeah, yeah. No, death is probably the easiest explanation that we have, or just Satan. The
Satan, yeah, or
yeah,
Satan, yeah.
yeah, the antithesis of the redemptive Christian God. In the Southern conception. And but then again, like I think when what's the guitarist's name again? Like
Oh, Tommy?
Tommy. Yeah, when
Yeah.
Tommy's describing the man that he made a deal with, it's that guy. You know, he's
Okay.
got like black empty eyes, you know, and he has a mean old hound. You know, which is like the bloodhound that he's always, you know, has on a lead.
Mhm.
So the idea that he's, you know, just this, yeah, in the South there's, you know, like the gods are real, you know, in this southern Mediterranean, ancient Greek Mediterranean thing that we have going on here, then yeah, that's what they're personified as. You know, like they're just these southern characters. And that makes me wonder, like, who the fuck is Babyface Nelson supposed to be? If that's the
Yeah.
case.
I have no idea. Yeah, that's something. I mean, yeah, there are people that really don't have analogs to the story where, I mean, you already brought up Tommy. Tommy, the that whole character is from like that southern I don't know
Yeah,
what you would call it, a myth, the
the
devil and Robert
Crossroads.
Johnson.
Yeah, the Crossroads
Yeah.
mythology. Yeah.
hmm And so I have no idea who Babyface Nelson's supposed to be, other than the fact that, it's like they wanted to throw somebody in there that is actually like a historical character. That would be, but I don't know who he would be in
In the
the
scheme of
actual, because
things. Yeah.
yeah, because there isn't anybody from the Odyssey that the crew really picks up, right? Like there isn't somebody who like comes on the boat with them and goes with them for a little bit,
No,
right?
nothing
That's
like
not a
that.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
They're just
Um,
constantly losing people.
yeah. But no, that guy's great, and we should talk about the bit parts in this where you mentioned the Woolworths guy who's literally on screen for like 3 seconds
A
and
fucking
makes the
king.
the most, yeah, makes the most of his role. But then you have I really like the Pete's cousin and his son who's using like the books to sit at the table and then also to drive the car, and the Reverend from Deadwood who plays Penny's new beau.
You can't shout at my fiance.
Yeah, that stuff's all great. And how they get into that, yeah, the bare knuckle fight, and yeah, that all that stuff's great. And yeah, you already Pappy and his staff, his campaign staff, how they're all just these like massive fat guys who have suspenders up to their nipples, and they're just lounging around on the deck with the lemonade, and that stuff's all great.
And yeah, I guess John Goodman, you know, like he once again like steals the show, you know, in a Coen Brothers movie. He had a great run with the Coen Brothers. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it started weird with Barton Fink, but like I think this was the last time they collaborated. But he killed it. A great bad guy. Like when he beats the shit out of them and like steals their money. It really shocked me as a kid because I wasn't used to seeing John Goodman that way.
Yeah, definitely a different against type for him, and yeah, I love how casual he is about it, about just they're oblivious to what he's about to do, but just how he casually, yeah, is just ripping the branch off the tree and testing it to see how it would hit them, and yeah, that's all that stuff is awesome, and
And one
yeah,
last shout out, Everett's kids. You know, like I always like I don't know, like I know that they don't do much, but the straightforward way that they're talking like grown-ups. You know,
mhm.
it's like your mama says he's bona fide. You know, that all that business. I don't know that I I love everybody in this movie. It's like God bless them, you know, for being a part of it. Is it?
Yeah, I
I
mean, unlike the Nolan's Odyssey, this is a movie where it's like perfectly cast, where it's like there isn't like one person in this movie that it's like, oh, you're the weak link in this chain. Everybody does what they need to do, and so yeah, I did want to talk about. I don't think I even put anything in the doc about this, but I mentioned it at the beginning. this is, of course, a one of many collaborations between the Coens and Roger Deakins.
Yes, yeah.
And is there any like shot or something in this movie that stands out where you're like, yeah, that's the shit right there as far as Deakins goes? Because for me, it's probably the movie theater scene when
Mm,
they're in the movie theater and that warden like comes through the back door and you can't see any of his features. You just see his outline like standing there and you're like, "Oh shit, what's happening?" And then the door opens down towards the screen and all the light is cast all over like the theater and all the prisoners like file in. That stands out to me as like, oh yeah, this is the shit. This is the cinematography shit right here. But anything stand out to you as far as that goes?
the clan sequence, like the,
Yeah.
and I guess like just also the a lot of the shot selections during the montages, like the in specific like one where they steal a pie out of a
Yeah.
windowsill. Like just like those small moments like that, or just like all of the different shots of the people driving cars down roads. Like it's like because there's a lot of like basic bitch responses, like like the down to the river to pray sequence, I suppose. But
Mhm.
the real good though, I you does it comes from when like we're going wide and you're just getting like they because they had to like how did they do it? They used a crazy kind of film stock, and then they did digital color correction to
Mhm.
get all the green out of the landscapes. And like that's an achievement, because it's like I don't know, like it looks like it is just dead and dusty everywhere. And that's impressive in and of itself. But yeah, but
Yeah.
okay. I think we're running up on the clock a little bit here.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess
unfortunately.
the only other thing is, I guess, to ultimate takeaway from both these
Yeah,
films, is like what did you take away from both of them? I mean, do you think that, I guess the big question for me is like, this is a thousands of year old poem by now, and it's like, why do you think this gets adapted now in 2026 or even back in 2000? I mean, it's only been, in the
yeah,
grand scheme of things, you take a poem that's thousands of years old, and there's an adaptation in the year 2000 that we're talking about, and there's an adaptation in the year 2026.
yeah.
And yes, there's 25 years separating, those times frame, but it's like they're both relatively recent. And it's like, why do these now? Does the Odyssey as a work, does it hold like these timeless universal truths, or is it just like a good story in the first place, like a good, why do this now, I guess.
I think what it kind of boils down to is that like we're kind of running up on the end date of the viability for what I'm going to describe here. But there were generations upon generations of people who were forced to read this story, in school,
Yeah.
and therefore knew it. So yeah, it's really really old, but it is treated with a reverence and a timelessness that a lot, like that it is in the collective you know shared consciousness of storytelling. And like everybody knows this story, kind of like everybody knows the Skywalker saga in general. Everyone knows, oh yeah, Odysseus went to war, had trouble coming home, ran into a Cyclops, got laid a lot, but then he made it home and killed everybody. Like it's a great story. And
Mhm.
there's and since I've learned in my research, there's so much more to the story than what we got, which leaves room to do things like what Nolan did and what the the Coen brothers did. And I think it boils down to it. It's like how can you, even though these adaptations are infrequent, like Holly, like this is the besides before Nolan's movie, O Brother Where Art Thou was probably the definitive Odyssey film.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that's true.
and so I guess that's why this pairing is good. that it just comes down to, it's like you could sell a studio head on this. We're gonna do the Odyssey. Okay, I'm listening. But it's in the South during the Dust Bowl, and T-Bone Burnett's gonna come up with a crack-a-jack soundtrack. And then they say, do it. They make it happen. I'm simplifying it. It took a great deal of their own creativity and their own ability to achieve the alchemy that they do. But yes, it's the same with Nolan. Like, it took a lot of other people to make his thing happen. And he, very rightly, like, knew that it would be hard, made sure everyone was on board for it, and then, embrace the challenge. It's like I think that's what it comes down to. It's something that a lot of people know, and and can have some sort of awareness or attachment to already. And it also leaves you room to do a lot of your own thinking and exploring within it, because it's so old and it's so trodden on. Your own unique interpretation still has some value to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a timeless story that a lot of people have some sort of reference for, that you can put you can adapt in many different ways, and so that's why it keeps getting readapted and readapted, and so
Like, there's
or retranslated
or
even.
exactly, like this
Yeah.
is specific, that the translation that Nolan was kind of inspired by is relatively recent. I think, like, within the last 10 years.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And like, look at all the comic books. There's this weird sci-fi, series where, like, Odyssey is spelled with just like ODSC. I think.
Mm.
I think, like, Rick Remender wrote it. Like, it's.
Okay. Yeah.
I saw it at Paradox once. I didn't actually get it. But if anyone out there, outside of the movies, is looking for, like, like, especially those fucking people bitching about the armor and the quote unquote historical accuracy for a legendary event that no one actually thinks happened in the way that Homer told it, read
Mm.
Age of Bronze by Eric Schnauer. I can't recommend that enough. He's finally started getting issues out for that again. And yeah, he writes and draws it himself. It's as much informed by Homer's poems as it is, like, like, plays and dramas from ancient Greeks that were inspired by the epic poem. Like the Iphigenea's, like, sacrifice in particular. But, like, like, that is the definitive, like, realistic, like, and grounded telling of the story, where you don't have to worry about who's playing Athena, because Athena only exists in the minds of its characters. If that's what you're looking for, look for that, because, like, that's one of my favorite tellings of the story.
Sure.
He
Yeah.
just has to finish it before he dies. He's
Yeah.
not a young man.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
my wife is breathing down my neck, so we're gonna have to
Yeah.
wrap this up. We'll see you next time for, I guess, our mini-sode episode, where not mini-sode, our watch list episode,
Mhm.
and we're gonna give you, I guess, a what our take on the first half of the year in film has been like, and everything else we've been watching during our extended break here. But thank you for joining us as always, and thank you, Matt. Have a good one.
Yep. See ya.